Welcome to Whiskey Wednesday, the YouTube show / podcast where we talk about web development and everything around it. The whiskey is optional, the fun is not. Get ready for your hosts, Mark Backus and Scott Spence.
Hello,
Still
everyone.
love that intro.
It's great. Welcome to Whiskey Wednesday. Awesome for everyone who's tuning in and also everyone who's listening to the podcast. So this is a show where we talk about web development and everything around it. And yes, today's topic is content creation, a pretty broad topic. We will talk about writing, doing videos, courses, and so on. And we have 3 guests on. And yes, I hand the introduction to Scott.
Okay, super. So hello, everyone, and I hope everyone's doing okay. So as Mark said, fortnightly talk show where we talk about web dev stuff. And he's also said this is recorded and distributed as a podcast. So if you are listening on one of the services, hello, thank you for listening, and please leave a comment, good or bad, and yeah, we love the feedback. So let's introduce our guests. We've got Rich Haynes, who's a software developer who specializes in the Jamstack. He does a lot of content, written content for places like Fauna and other companies I can't think of right now. We have Katie Codes. She's a database developer, a Salesforce developer, and Salesforce admin, and also a Python enthusiast. And we have John Hilton, who's a .NET developer and online course creator and trainer of other developers. Hello, everyone. How you doing?
Hello.
Hello.
Great to be here.
How's it going? So I think we'll make apologies for Randall as well. Randall Kenner was meant to be here, but she's had to withdraw last moment due to what seems like an emergency at home. So I hope you're okay, Randall, and we'll hopefully hear from you soon. Cool. So we've got a lot of topics to get through this week. So first off, though, should we just do a quick round the table of introductions, what people do, just so we've got this in past sort of episodes, we've focused a lot on the sort of JavaScript side, but with Katie and John this week, it's we're sort of a bit more diverse with the sort of stuff we can talk about. So yeah, if you want to do a round the table, start with Katie.
All right. Well, thanks for having me, Scott and Mark. Katie Codes, and I started out working with Oracle SQL databases, started on the data entry side, and gradually learned more and more code, both on the job and through going to formal schooling for it, and fell into Salesforce work through that, which was a big paradigm shift, but it's been fun to figure out how they're the same as much as they're different, and have fallen into what I would say is extract, transform, load, ETL integrations work, just trying to get data out of one database and into another, just with duct tape and string.
Yeah.
And so I've fallen into APIs and Python and a lot of that kind of stuff. My content creation, I would say, is blogging and conference and meetup presentations and hands-on workshops. This winter, after the American election, and I stopped doing get out the vote work, I'm looking forward to trying my hand at tutorial videos. Not really in podcasts, live streams, or those amazing long Twitter threads. I don't know how to do the long Twitter thread thing. But yeah, it's great to be here, and that's what I do.
Cool. Who wants to go next? Should we go John or Rich? What do you think?
I'm happy to go. So my web history goes all the way back to when GeoCities ruled the world, and if you remember those days, and made for Netscape and works with Internet Explorer badges and all that kind of stuff. And the first website I ever created was a fan site for Red Dwarf. And I seem to remember I had lots of like audio WAV files up there, which pretty blatant copyright infringement going on, but back then nobody seemed to mind, I don't think. And that was it. So I created that, all static HTML, got a big fat book on HTML and read it and, did all that stuff. And then from there, I've just carried on going, I think, through classic ASP, ASP.NET. More recently, I've worked on React projects as well as ASP.NET, more recently Blazor that everyone's getting very excited about. So I'm actually one of those kind of .NET developers because that's where I lean, but I do actually like JavaScript and I have used it quite a bit as well. So there are those who are less keen. But yeah, so overall that's it. And now full time actually since the beginning of lockdown, I'm now working on my blog and creating courses to help other developers level up their skills.
Cool. Rich, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, so it's funny you should say .NET. I actually started with .NET and C#. So I transitioned, kind of a career changer, I don't know what you want to call it, kind of late. So, but I started with a .NET C# course and then got a job as a front-end developer, learned JavaScript on the job, doing React. And then I still do the same job now, but on the side, I concentrate all my efforts on JavaScript Jamstack. It's kind of what I love experimenting with and doing. Content creation, I do tutorials, posts, those kind of things, snippets. I've tried streaming. I'm kind of dipping my toes into it, but it's difficult with, we've had the kids home over the summer, trying to find time to put aside for it. And it's something I'd like to do more consistently, but that's what I do. I focus most of my energy on trying to do writing kind of content, and I do some for like other companies and stuff like Scott said.
Cool. So just a bit of a disclaimer, Rich and I know each other from Twitter, and we both are collaborating on a project at the moment for MDX, which is very much sort of focused towards the Jamstack. So he's one of my MDX buddies.
You're going to try and sell it, Scott.
So should we do a quick... Yeah. I won't do any more of that because you can see Mark, he doesn't look too impressed already. Or is it just you're just changing the hue on your light bulbs, are you, Mark? So let's do a quick drink check. Beetroot juice for me today. I'm driving after the show, so no alcohol for me today.
Yeah, I'll have today a fine bottle of water. Today, no whiskey.
So I have props, but this is actually tea because we ran out of the good stuff. So.
Yeah, and I've gone with the most English drink you could choose, which is also tea, although it's not disguised as anything else in this case. And that's the .NET Rocks mug from the .NET Rocks podcast. So
I've got an actual glass of alcohol right here.
So
it's red wine.
I have
a box of red wine, so it's not even a joke. It's right here.
Wine Wednesday.
Brilliant, classic. Okay, so Wine Wednesday. There you go. What should we talk about, Mark?
Yeah, well, I think a good way to start is how you get inspired for the content you create, because I also write I wrote blog posts. It's been the last one, it's been a few months, so I'm not that regular, even though I would want to be. Well, now I'm creating a podcast and a YouTube live show, cool, and also talks for conferences. But it's always my biggest hurdle is how do I get ideas for new stuff? Like often I'm not inspired at all for a topic in specific, and then I just end up doing nothing. So how do you guys manage that?
Katie?
All right. So yeah, mine's. I'm going to be changing it.
Sorry,
all.
I didn't mean to
No,
put you on the spot there.
Now it's very reactional. I'm on blog number 3 since I started learning to code, and the first one was called Oracle to Salesforce, and it was me figuring out loud how they were different and writing it down so I didn't forget. And a lot of my timing and the sort of boom or bust cycle that's on my current blog is still, I did a thing, I should write it down. Which is great for Googling your own things you did a long time ago. I read a book by Stephanie Murillo probably, called A Developer's Guide to Content Creation, and it has these fabulous worksheets. I bought it, I loved it, I put it on the shelf and ignored it. And John, you've got Alex Hillman's Tiny MBA in the background, and I just also bought and read that, and it basically convinced me that I need to go back and actually do the worksheets in Stephanie's book. So I'm planning to, what I'd like to do for inspiration is actually ask people what they want to hear about and do a little bit of planning about delivering that kind of thing. But at the moment, my inspiration is very much, oh my gosh, I got this working. I'm going to write down how I got it working. So, yeah.
Yeah. I think I've done a bit of that as well, the sharing, like working in public thing, which I think is really good. Like it's valuable for anyone who's just a step behind you who, sees the thing you've just discovered. But I think as well, so you mentioned Alex Hillman, that's very relevant for the way I do it because Alex Hillman and Amy Hoy have a course, 30 by 500, which is all about building a product business. And the key tenet of that in terms of blog posts is a process for doing that, which basically involves actually deliberately researching your audience. And that boils down to finding where they are. So online, whether it's, Reddit or Twitter even, or anywhere that they hang out, where they discuss problems that they're having and that kind of thing. And what's really good about going there is you, with a bit of intent, can actually kind of take notes on what you see, pains that keep coming up, things people are struggling with. And that's really good for avoiding that moment where you run out of ideas, because I've literally before now put Post-it notes on my wall and had this wall of pain of people saying, I'm struggling with this. I get frustrated when I jump out of the tutorials, etc., etc. So it's really good for kind of focusing you in on the kind of things you can help with when you're stuck for inspiration.
Wall of pain. Wow.
The wall of pain.
Yeah, the
That's
wall of pain.
inspiring and depressing.
Right?
Yeah, I think for my content creation, I think it's pretty much like what Katie was saying. It's you work something out, and it's like, right, okay, I want to share it and document it, because you sort of help solidify your understanding once you sort of you write out what you've done. So that's pretty much how I sort of view it, really. How do you do stuff like that, Rich? Is it the same vein, or?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, I think taking notes when you're coding is like the big kind of, just for yourself to remember how to do things for the future, but also to kind of like have things that you can write about as well, and having these small snippets of things that you can push that out as a post, and then you can build them up into one single post. You're rehashing the same stuff, you're repackaging it as one thing. That's also a good thing to do. I mean, I quite like doing like a project. So like I have a project and I make the project. I have this idea, I make a project, and then I break it up into smaller parts, and then I try and see if I can make some posts about any problems I had along the way, and also a tutorial to how to do that project. Funny enough,
thing.
Exactly, yeah, make it a thing.
Yeah.
Funny enough, just before we started tonight, I actually started on a new post. Colby Fayok, if I'm saying his name correctly. He released 50 React projects.
Yeah, that's a great book.
This amazing ebook where it's just like these 50 ideas for projects you can do with React, basically. And I kind of, not like I'm the first person to do this at all, but everyone's voice is different. I think that's the most important thing as well when blogging, to realize that you can repeat what other people have done and it's just as relevant. So I'm thinking about going through his some of his examples in that book and just kind of like going through it, see how I would build it, change certain things in it, write about it. things like that. I mean, that's kind of good inspiration for me to write about it. And if there's any problems I find, then other people would have found that problem too.
I think that that sort of riffing on what somebody else wrote. My top 3 posts, according to Google Analytics, are all things I wrote in reaction to what somebody else wrote.
Yeah,
which is interesting. It really is amazing that like when things are a big deal, they're a big deal, and people do want to know about them. And so, I'm not the kind of person who is the gift to the world who reads all of the release notes from something like Salesforce and then like makes the list. But then even just reading one of those cheat sheets and saying, oh, that one thing is interesting, and diving into that's been a great source of inspiration that surprisingly people actually do want to hear, as opposed to I did a thing that nobody else does for a living. So yeah, it definitely having, being tapped into your community and riffing on other people, even if you think they did it before, you do have something to add.
Yeah. So, John, could we? Sorry, I didn't mean to dismiss you there, Kate, but that's really good. But just what you were saying there about finding your community, and what John was saying about the wall of pain. So, how do you? I mean, because I know that there's certain developers who like will focus on just one part of like a dev journey, let's say, but this is just what you're seeing like on Twitter. How do you find pain points on Reddit? Because it's not a very sort of transactional place. It's just like a static sort of thing. And
yeah, it's really interesting. And I think actually Reddit is not necessarily the easiest place to do this sometimes. I think, as you say, the nature of the conversations on Reddit don't always lend themselves to it. But essentially it's really about empathy, but it's slightly trickier. That like empathy, obviously, if you're talking to people and you can listen to them and really dig into what it is that they're saying, it's a bit harder with this. But what you're essentially looking for is, when somebody cries out for help, the very fact that they've gone on the internet to ask strangers for help with something, in many ways, is a sign that they've got something that they're struggling with. And again, the course that Amy and Alex put together also talks about hidden pains. So those things that it's not someone explicitly saying, although people do sometimes say, I hate this, or, I really can't wear this out. But sometimes just by the way they're talking about it, you can tell. So I think it comes down to a good technique I found for that is actually if you reply to the forum, just thinking about your reply, that often turns into a blog post later. So actually helping them in the first place and saying, right, see they're having this problem, have you tried this? And then actually it's amazing how often you can take what you've offered there as one solution to one person, and essentially it could become a blog post that would help lots more people who are having the same problem. And that wall of pain thing is funny because it conjures up a certain image. But what you can do is stand back and look at it. So I stood back and looked at it, and the amount of people, especially in the .NET world, literally saying, I hate JavaScript. I just can't wrap my head around the JavaScript ecosystem, whatever it might be. And the thing about the empathy side is it's not necessarily my opinion, because I'm happy using JavaScript, but there's pain there, right? There's a reason why .NET developers have struggled in some cases, not all, to take to JavaScript, and they're struggling with it. So you can work with that and you can say, well, what are they struggling with? Is it the build process? Is it a specific framework? Is it a specific part of a specific framework? So I find it's really good for, coming up with ideas, really.
Man, that whole thing resonates with me so much, coming from .NET to JavaScript, because I had so many, it wasn't that long ago. I haven't been coding for that long, but it was definitely a transition, and there were lots of kind of pain points for me making that transition. You got very much the mentality of like a developer relations, developer advocate kind of person. I don't know if that's what you do, but that is very much kind of that kind of outlook on how to interact with the community and see where people are suffering and do something about it.
I think that's probably what I've evolved into now with this. So it's now my full-time working for myself, essentially. So if I don't create useful content on the blog and ultimately find extensions of that can turn into products that people are that are useful, then essentially I don't have a business. So for me, I think without that empathy and ability to really focus in on what people are really saying, I can't really get there very easily with what I'm trying to do, which is help more people and scale that up really.
So how do you sort of sorry, Katie, how do you find your community? And I know you're on the Party Corgis Discord, where because where John's saying he writes for like a specific community, I sort of fall into what you were saying. It's like it's a reactionary thing. You find something, you work something out, it's cool, you go okay, and then that's there for you when you're Googling how to do it the next time. But have you done like specific stuff for just because you say some Google Analytics says this is popular, I'm going to write about something else along these lines, or anything like that?
Well, okay, so the Salesforce community is huge. It's got its own internal question and answer site called the Trailblazer Communities, and I definitely should spend more time there than I do. It's also got a rich meetup circle, although all meetups are a little different now, but a lot of the ones in my town have moved online, and
Everything's online now, isn't it?
Yeah. And so I would say that I could literally just do Salesforce content if I didn't have a bit of that starving artist syndrome thing of, no, I want to do what interests me right this minute. And so I think that as I do get more intentional this winter, I think one of the first things I'll dive into is Salesforce, because I have so many great friends there who have asked if I could help to teach a few things that quite honestly, I'm not sure if I know well enough, but they seem to trust me. And so I'm hoping to spend some time making sure that I am not going to lead people astray, and then volunteer at some meetups. And anytime people approach you in the eating part of a meetup, just everybody starts small talking about their problems. So
yeah. How do you do that now in a meetup? Because
right?
you don't get this like the small talk bit. Because I spoke at one last night, and like there was a Q&A, but I just wanted to talk to everyone. So I was like being conversational, and everyone's just sort of sat there listening. So it's not. I don't think that part is
So you're giving another person.
Yeah.
No, I think it's challenging, isn't it? I think the conferences are all struggling with this because I was listening to a guy called Dylan Beatty, who's done a lot of work recently with NDC conferences, taking them online. And he was basically saying that it's really difficult because all the conferences are basically doing online the ones that they were going to do live. So at the moment, that phase that we're in is essentially pre-committed conferences, and they've just moved them online. But as a business model, how does that work going forwards? If this carries on, things like sponsorship don't work as well. There's a whole can of worms there. But I think a big part of it is that water cooler, discussion is very hard to create online if you can at all. And also, he's said about not asking anyone now that user groups don't record his talks, because he said it's a strange thing if you do the same talk to the same webcam in the same room for 5 different user groups. It's interesting if someone records it and puts it online, because the bit you aren't doing is the interaction with people and all that kind of stuff. So if it's just the same talk done to the same webcam, he's kind of asking them not to do that, because if he's going to turn up and do them, he doesn't want it to just be a video that someone can just go and watch and miss all that interaction. So there's lots of challenges there, I think.
Okay, so what you're saying about sort of reusing content there as well, John, I think we had something lined up for that. Excuse me. And Richard, you touched on it earlier. Sorry, Rich, you touched on it about either having it broken up into bits and talking about it in separation for certain aspects of it, and then joining it up into like one big blog post and stuff like that. So is that something you all do? Or I mean, I've got a ton of stuff which is like a bit dated now, and I'm thinking I could just do it again, but I don't really think there's a lot else I could add to it now. I mean, I haven't actually gone through it all, but
I mean, even the fact of going through like an old blog post, you have like a long format blog post. I mean, you know, you can break that up. You probably have, but you can break that up into smaller chunks. Like what part of this, you know, you do a lot of Gatsby content working with, what's it called? Gatsby browser, SSR, you know, just the amount of things you can do within that with regards to that post, you know, do you know what I mean? Like splitting it, you have it as a whole already, and then you break it back down into pieces just to kind of regurgitate this content. And this is something else I learned from the Party Corgi, or learned like some people were saying, and I kind of realized this, but I thought that kind of like reposting stuff would be kind of spammy, but then you got to kind of realize that in the world of the internet, not everyone's online 24/7, and people are online at different times. So whenever you post something, XYZ amount of people might have missed that content. So you can post it again 2 hours later, 5 hours later at a certain schedule, whatever, and you're going to reach different people, different audiences with that content. I mean, for me personally, where I live in Sweden, you know, I find the best traction I get would be posting around midnight, my time, in order to reach people in America at a certain time, wherever they are, depending on the day. You know, you have to work these kind of things out. And, you know what I mean? And just kind of like reposting, regurgitating the things that you work on. It's like such an important aspect of trying to get people. I mean, I'm kind of moving on to getting people to look at your work, but I mean, it's an important aspect of it, not to be scared to kind of push more things out that you've already pushed out there before, because, you know, people haven't seen it.
What do you think about that, Mark? It's something I don't do a great deal of myself. Like say, I just don't want to be like spammy. I don't want to be this guy who's just spamming out the same links all the time on Twitter and stuff. So, but you could do it every now and then, I guess. I mean, we had a whole show where we spoke about this and like retweeting your own tweets and stuff like that, which I do. And I do it to other people's tweets as well. So if you know, if I don't think there's been enough engagement from it, then I'll unretweet it and then retweet it, and then all of a sudden there'll be a lot more engagement. So I know what you mean. Yeah. So
I usually don't repost my stuff, but if you really want to go at it from like marketer's point of view, I think you kind of have to, because of the reasons that Rich mentioned, like different time zones, like is one of them, and or maybe like it was vacation or something, nobody watched it, and five weeks later you retweet it, and I think it's completely fine to repeat content. But also what I wanted to ask you guys, do you think it's a good idea to recycle content? So you write a blog post, and then you could recycle it as a video stream, and then you can recycle it as a Twitter thread, and then you can recycle that as screenshots on Instagram and so on.
It's interesting. So Katie, you mentioned earlier about the Tiny MBA book, and I think literally the first page in that discusses that most, and I think it applies to us as well doing content creation, most business owners would benefit a lot from spending less time thinking in their own head about their own perspective and thinking about, you know, their customers. I think it's the same here. It's very easy to develop a kind of guilt feeling of, oh, if I just send this tweet out again, I'm spamming people. So I guess my thought would be, well, turn that around and say, well, actually, if someone's missed it the first time, it's useful to them to see it, then actually sending it again is a good thing, because you're actually increasing the chance that they'll see it. So I think it helps to frame it slightly differently, actually, that it's more about helping as many people as possible, not just, you know, self-promotion, which I think is the guilt thing we can all definitely develop. And I think in terms of reusing ideas, I'd say it's probably a good thing to do if done right. So essentially, if you've created something which you can now think of as an asset, so a blog post or a video, if it's possible to, again, from a customer point of view, you know, audience point of view, really, if it's possible to change that slightly and get it in front of more people, in a way that might be better for them. So some people prefer to learn from videos, some people are much more likely to read. Then again, I would see that as a generous thing to do, actually. And it's also sensible reuse of something you've put lots of time and effort into, and not starting from scratch every time, which is something I could definitely do more of, I think, is stop. I did 2 user group talks recently on completely different subjects in a fortnight. I was like, why would I give myself that much work to do and not do the same talk twice, you know? So
what you're saying about reusing content, but I've started recently doing writing a section of a blog post, let's say, and then accompanying it with a video of how something was done, because if you're sort of writing technical stuff, sometimes just whacking in a code block and saying join this to that and do this, it can get really confusing for someone who's just trying to skim through it. So I've decided to start sort of augmenting my blog posts with a video, and I've even put in too long didn't read, just skip to the video to watch how it's done, sort of thing, because people consume media, consume stuff in different ways, and I thought it would help people reading it if they can sort of read through it and then sort of actually see it happening as well. But I wouldn't really say it's something which, say, you're churning out a lot of content. I don't really think it's something you can sustain over a long period of time. But I guess this is where the sort of marketing aspect comes into it. I don't really. They're like two separate things, aren't they? So
I guess it depends on the type of content you're doing as well. Like if you're doing it for if you're doing a long form tutorial, whatever, something that's long format, then doing these little extra video snippets, that sounds like a super brilliant, that's a really good idea. And hearing about that, I think instantly from a user's perspective, that's that's cool. Because for me, I hit those exact snags when I'm reading through things. Someone can be a really good writer, but they can be writing some code snippets. I get to the point.
Yeah.
I want to see it happen, kind of thing. And
and especially when you've got a really big, it just turns into a big code wall, doesn't it? Of stuff to do, and it's unmanageable for text. So it becomes more convenient to have it in that sort of format, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I wrote this post for Fauna before the summer, and
it was a good post. The Harry Potter one.
Yeah, over 8,000 words. I was just this shit is so long. I wish I could break this up. And we were going to break it up into 3 pieces, like a series, but at the end it was decided to just we just one piece, bam, there it is. And having
it was really good. It was good. Did you get any analytics from it, so how popular it was and stuff?
Oh, you know what? I had to post it with their analytics tag, but I didn't think to do it. I just posted it, and shared it and whatnot. But I think I still get quite a bit of traction from it. But the point being, what I meant was that it was so long with so many code blocks in it and because it was a complete deep dive, it was literally holding your hand throughout the whole thing, styles and all. So video content to break that up would be a much better way of presenting that kind of content, where it is holding your hand. You haven't done this before. You've got to make a directory. You've got to have you got Node? Install Node. Now we're going to install React, and you go through the whole process of including styling and absolutely everything. And you can imagine with code blocks, hence the 8,000 words. So I definitely think videos, little video snippets. That's a cool idea. I really like that.
Yeah.
I think the idea of reusing content it's funny. If somebody had told me to do what you're talking about doing, I would have said, that is so much work. I don't know how to do video production. I'll never get this blog post written if I have to make a video. Yeah. The idea of, but the audience wants to see it in multiple formats, and it's smart authoring to rehash your old content lets me allow myself to repeat myself in a way that might eventually lead to having that kind of thing. It's okay, well, I'll take the blog post and I'll make a video of it. And then later, I suppose, I could just now embed it back in the original blog post. Yeah. And actually, again, I think it's important to find a circle of friends who also create content, because a lot of times if you have a day job with other coders, a lot of them don't write content, and they show up, they do their job, and they go home and they do a healthy hobby away from a computer. And so it can be nice to have, whether it's on Twitter or a Discord, to have other people who make you feel sane and who can serve as proofreaders, or give you like lessons learned from their experiences, if you want to try something new, but also challenge buddies and cohorts. I just recycled content deliberately into an ebook. I just took a post series from the blog and copied and pasted it and made it a PDF, because I was told I had 2 weeks to do it and everybody was going to have it last Friday. So go.
So, yeah.
And so, yeah, it's great to have other people to egg you on into reusing content when you feel shy about doing it.
I think just going back to what you're saying about producing videos and stuff, if you check out, like I did, like a Build a Gatsby blog from start to finish video course. And the reason why I did the videos was partly because there's a lot of stuff to go over, but it also helped with writing the content as well, because I'd actually, it sort of comes to the natural sort of sections where you just go through one bit and you're like, okay, that's that section done. And it helps you add the text to it as well. So my video contents were start, record, done, publish, and that's it. I've got a thumbnail on them and that's it. And that's pretty much how all my videos, because who's got time for editing and stuff like that, really? I mean, if there's like a really long bit of content and, there's something which is blatantly wrong midway through it. I mean, I've had people call me out on Twitter saying it was really painful watching you code this for 2 minutes when you had like this character in the wrong place. And sorry, we all do it. So that's how it is. So
you know what's funny about that though is that I think if it's like a video that's that people would expect to be produced, they would probably find that frustrating. But on the flip side, if they go and watch a live stream of someone coding, they almost want that to happen. Like they want it to be real and the person for it not to be too pre-prepared, and for the person to actually maybe get a bit stuck and think out loud. Because the benefit of that, of course, is you're seeing how someone thinks and how someone approaches that problem. So it's just,
Yeah, I'm saying it's on YouTube. So if you don't like it, you can have your money back. Because and that's another reason I guess why I don't really put a great deal of effort into it, because no one's paying for it. No one's going to be like, oh, I'm really angry about this content because I've had to sit and watch you try and debug something. It's free, so you're welcome. And if you don't like it, then sorry about that. Just move on. Sort of thing. So,
kind of warts and all because it's free, like this, because you're not going to put it behind a paywall because I'm giving you this content for free, so it's going to be every mistake I make. Whereas if I was going to put it behind a paywall, I would put the effort into eliminating it.
Yeah.
The same thing at the same time, like what John said, I think it's an interesting point with streaming. I've only streamed maybe like a handful of times, literally 5 or 6, not very many at all. But the whole element of having people involved and seeing you go through these mistakes that everybody who codes goes through, everybody who tries to code, you miss some stupid thing somewhere and you spend maybe 20 minutes trying to find it. I think these are important things for people to see. Yeah, but these are, depending on the video content, these are important things for potential coders or coders who are just starting out to see that everybody isn't this super duper perfect robot who just codes everything immaculately first time. It is like, it's full of like, where the hell is that semicolon? Why did I do that? You know what I mean? It's
yeah, I think it's fascinating. I'm now thinking of my worst days coding and just thinking what it would have been like if I'd have live streamed those like 8 hours of me going, what is this?
I mean, I've given it today. I
from-
have single comment and double comments on different sides of the word. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, we have a comment here from Rook. He says,
Hey, Rook.
When content creators show debugging, that's a plus. So that's kind of sums it up. That so when we have like those kind of live streams, like we should not maybe not on purpose do the errors or the mistakes, but it's completely fine. But that's also like something I personally feel shy about. Like if I would go on live stream and I would be coding something that's not really all that prepared before, I would feel like, oh man, now I have to Google how to reverse an array or how to randomize an array or something.
I think it's good because you can't. There's no pause on a live stream, so you're there, you're doing it. So
Yeah.
I think it's a good thing to sort of try and be more comfortable with. I guess it's the same as talking as well. I mean, I know you've got a big talk coming up, Mark, and you must have to practice that a lot. But I'm guessing there's always going to be something where you think you've missed something, or there's always that sort of fear in the back of your mind. You're going to sort of you're going to mess up a bit. So I don't know. I think like you're saying, it's the more you do it, the more you'll be sort of comfortable with it. I don't mean to make you feel uncomfortable about your talk, mate. Was that earlier on today, by the way? Was that earlier? You recorded it?
Yeah, we pre-recorded it today, and I actually in the live demo there was suddenly a mistake that I didn't find right away, and I think I didn't watch the video again, but I think I must have flushed all red in my face, being hectic and everything. So yeah, we will see that on Vue.js Global, but they thought it was fine. So let's see.
When is that going out, by the way? Just to plug it a little bit more.
Streaming on September 17th.
Cool.
That's pretty cool.
18th, and my part is on the 17th at 7 p.m.
Congrats, man.
Thank you.
I'll say cheers to that, but you're all drinking tea.
I've run out of beetroot juice as well.
To that.
Yes.
That live coding thing is interesting as well, because I did a user group talk recently, and it was probably my first virtual live coding, if you like, over Zoom or whatever. And it was painful. I've got to be honest. Like, to me, it felt horrible. I felt like, I'm really like trying to talk about this and type the code. And when something went wrong, my brain was going, there's like, I don't know, 50 people watching this. And to even think in that situation clearly about what the problem could be was really hard. And everyone said afterwards, "Oh no, it's fine. It's like the duck swimming on water." I think my legs underneath were going like, the clappers, but on the surface, I must have looked just serene and calm, like I had it under control. But I think that's a natural thing.
Yeah,
it's a difficult thing, live coding. I think
it's definitely hard. Yeah, I think you've got to get a knack for it. I think being open to the kind of like making mistakes, I think that is one of the biggest things. I don't know if everyone goes through it. I kind of assume they do, but when you start live coding, it's like, I'm going to be really shit. I'm going to make lots of mistakes. It's going to be embarrassing, blah, blah, blah. But, it doesn't actually work out that way. It works out that when you make mistakes, people are there to help you. People are very genuine with their help. And I think the honesty involved in that kind of interaction, when you are trying to do something and you are nervous, and that you're honest with what you're doing, and you say, I don't know, and I'm not sure, and people are there to help you. I think it's nice, it's a nice experience. I guess, when you reach a certain level, when you're so used to it, maybe you lose that element of it. But I think definitely at the beginning, it's enjoyable, going through that in a way.
So
my fear would be like, I'm live coding, right? And then there happens a mistake or an error, and you don't find it. You you keep changing everything and probably even making it worse.
But I think asking for help, though, that's the thing, isn't it? That's being able to ask for help and holding your hands up and saying, I think that, from my perspective, when I live code, I'm thinking like I'm the expert here. I'm teaching you something, but putting that to one side and admitting that, I don't know what's going on here. Does anybody know? Then it's kind of liberating almost.
Everyone helps out as well. If they can say, they usually, when you see in conferences and stuff, people go, yeah, line 7, typo and stuff like that. So, people do help out with that. So there's a comment from Gabby in the YouTube comments, Mark. There we go. And yeah, I think this is the thing where, let's just read it out. Somehow I think that a no mistake live coding gives some ideas to some interviewers that this is how good devs work, which is not the reality, I think. So I think we all know that it's very much not the reality, and it's for show reels, it is like the show reel of their coding, basically, especially if it's pre-recorded.
It's really interesting too, because I'm now thinking about pair programming. So a couple of years ago, I was doing lots of pair programming in a role, and it was really good. I felt like it went really well, and it was all mentoring based. So it was very much like working together, trying to understand the problem, and I could just bring my experience to it. And then a few years later, I was pairing in a different environment, and I found it really hard. And I was trying to think, well, why is this different? What's changed? Have I become less good at mentoring or something, or pairing? And I realized it was exactly what you just said, Rich. I think and Scott, about the perception of being an expert. In that role that I'd gone to, I had more pressure, which I don't think was coming from anyone but me, actually. But I felt like there was more pressure on me to be the expert. So when I was pairing, I was under this kind of, I've got to be good, I've got to do this well, I can't spend half an hour looking up Stack Overflow answers, It completely changed it, and it actually made it really hard to pair effectively, because I had to then relearn to throw that out and say, well, I'm not here to be the expert, we're here to work together to solve this problem,
Mm.
Yeah,
Cool.
we have
So
another comment.
sorry, Mark, go on. Yeah.
From Jordan. I agree. It's also nice to have insights into other developers' problem solving, and I think it helps develop the viewers' interests, humanizes things. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I meant with the kind of the being honest, like the honesty when you're actually doing the live coding without putting on a front like I'm the best, I know what I'm doing kind of thing.
Yeah.
I think it also
should be. Yeah, Katie.
For actual great instruction, not just because people are implicitly watching how you think, but I mean, maybe that's all tied in together. But Julia Evans made a great point on episode 16 of Greater Than Code that's really stuck with me, which is that a lot of times you don't want to ask an expert for help. When you are trying to figure out how to do something, you want to ask the person who just learned it themselves, because they still remember what it was that they got stuck on in the process of learning it.
Yeah.
And so you're often making great content when you're still at or just out of, but sometimes slipping back into some of those things of like, I'm going to be on Stack Overflow for 30 minutes now, right in front of you.
Yeah, and blog posts too, I think it's the same. It's that there's always someone just one step behind you. So the thing that you think's too trivial to write about is almost guaranteed to help someone. I mean, if it was helpful to you, it's helpful to other people.
Exactly.
Mark, we've got quite a few questions from Twitter as well.
Yes.
Should we go through a couple of those?
Yes, of course.
So I've got them up here. So we've got one from Alex Thomas on Twitter, who's Graphed Overflow. Awesome username. How do you find the time how do you find the time to create content if you also work full time? Is a really good one. Let's just rattle off the 3 questions, and we can sort of chip in with them. Second question is, do you swap out time you would have spent on your side project? And what's the best result of creating content? What's the best result? I'm not sure what that means. So how do you find the time if you also work full time to create content? Me, it leans into the second question he said. Do you swap out time you would have spent on a side project, do you swap out time you would have spent on a side project? I'm guessing it means like time you would have spent, like family time, not work time. That's usually what I've done. I when I sort of first started coding, I would be getting up very early, and then that couple of hours before work would be my sort of blogging, learning, content creation time, and then any sort of other spare time I get through the week would be how I do that. And I would say that the best result of creating the content is just helping other people out. I think the best result you can have from that is to someone to say to you, thank you so much for this. It really helped me out with a problem I was having. And that's pretty much why I started doing it in the first place, really. So do you want me to put these into, I'll put this into the chat so everyone can read it while they're trying to answer it.
Yeah. So I have another thing to say about this. What's the best result? I completely agree with Scott. So when you just find one person that you can help, you already done your job. You already won. So like a few years ago, I was a college professor, and there were so many students that were not really interested in my classes, and they were like doing dumb stuff and not paying attention and playing around. And I said to myself, well, if I can get to one student who gets interested in web development, and if I can help him across the path, I win. And at the end of the semester, one student came, hey, I want to learn more about this. And I was like, yes.
Yeah. Makes it all worth it.
You can't force people to like what you do, but if you find someone you can help, that's all the reward you need, I think.
Yeah, no, I also have a goal of finding 10 people who have successfully used Python instead of spending 6 hours with Excel to process a spreadsheet. And if I think I've heard of one so far, and so I have 9 more to go before I'm like, I'm doing content creation, I'm done. But yeah, I think as far as working full time, it's interesting. I just yesterday saw someone whose content I've really been admiring lately. I realized, number one, they're still job hunting, so that is a part that is their work, is making themselves look good for finding a job. And number two, they admitted they're starting to get kind of tired of it. So one of the things that I think is so important is it's really important to learn from your role models, because if you're public speaking, there might be people who have acting experience that you're like, wow, they're so good, and you can just sort of watch them and get the Cliff's Notes to public speaking instead of going back to high school and being in all the plays. So it's great to learn from people who are doing things well, but you really don't want to compare your success to the success and results of other people, because you don't know what's going on in their lives. You don't know if they have kids. You don't know if they have a partner who's picking up a lot of the slack to invest in their content creation journey. You don't know what they do for a living. You don't know if they got lucky with just the right break. But yeah, so I definitely think that working full time is part of why I have treated this as a hobby, and it's just sort of slipped in sometimes when I'm not being reminded to go exercise and do things.
And also, people don't tend to share their failures as willingly as their successes. So all the failed product launches and all that stuff that people have gone through 5 of before they hit the jackpot with a big launch, they've generally speaking don't tend to share as much. And I think for me, so when I was full time and I started doing this, I had it started with a very strong drive to. So for me personally, I didn't want to be always working for someone else. That was a real big thing. Suddenly, it was one Christmas. I don't know why, but it was a New Year's resolution thing. But I kind of just emerged into 2016, really driven to not always have to work for someone else. and it's to do with having young children and commuting and all that stuff. And so for me, I just started doing that course I mentioned earlier with Amy and Alex. But for me, it was a habit thing. So I very deliberately used that kind of momentum and impetus, but then created a habit. And it was as simple as 3 or 4 nights a week when the kids went to bed, I'd go and get a cup of tea, go and sit at my computer. And that was it. Like, actually, I didn't even say that I would do anything when I got to my computer, but it's like making it a really easy thing to do. And 9 times out of 10, when I did go and sit at my computer and I'd got my cup of tea and the kids were in bed, the natural next thing was to start writing my blog posts. And I hit a streak as well, which really helped. So I think that was my most prolific year. And I've not been anywhere near as consistent any year since. But that year, I think I hit like 1 a week blog posts, and there was lots of momentum. And I think the momentum then helps you, drives you on. So the momentum was, like you said, the one that brings a smile to my face always is people saying this was really helpful. This, really helped me and open my eyes to something I just couldn't get before. And also just, getting the occasional mention on newsletters or industry podcasts and things. Just all those little tiny successes for me were enough to keep me doing it. And then the habit and those two together kind of just kept it ticking along. Weirdly, now I'm full-time on it, it's an awful lot easier to procrastinate because there's so much more time. It's like, if you're at all unsure what to work on, it's a killer because you go to your computer like, what should I work on? And then you realize like an hour of Twitter later, what should I work on?
It can be quite a bad sort of path to go on as well. So I just thinking back to how do you come up with ideas for stuff? So I think like Katie and Rich and I were saying, it can be like a reactionary thing, and what I'm trying to get at is, we're not going to talk about recycling content. We're not going to talk about just sort of finding stuff for, the community, what they want. It's just like, I've done X, Y, and Z. I've done all these posts now. What next? What is there next to do? I mean, do you find yourself just like sniffing about for content? It's like, oh, I'll make this into a blog post, even though it's not, that interesting. Or, I mean, you see some.
Sorry,
I'm just thinking about like YouTube reaction videos and stuff like that. I mean, once you get to a certain level on YouTube, all you do is just crap out reaction videos and that's it, sort of thing. So I'm not sure on how what that feels like for a lot of people. And for me, I'm not sort of, I've got to pump something out this week, or I'm going to lose some page views or something. That's not how I sort of see it. But I'm wondering how you guys, you folks feel about that. Rich, you were about to say something, but I carried on talking. I didn't mean to cut you off, mate.
No, yeah, it's all right, mate. No, I was just going to say, like, I think it depends. I mean, I'm just talking from a personal perspective here. This isn't some kind of like, generalized advice or anything, but like since January this year, I've been kind of like looking for a new role. So what I found myself doing a lot of the time is creating content, or if I find a company where content can be created around, I should say, then I have been focusing that kind of content around that company. So for instance, if it's a CMS, then I would focus my content around that. If it is a framework, if it is a language, if it is a certain a website, they make dashboards, it will be around dashboards. It will be them kind of things. Yeah. Also to give me an in at the job, but also as something to do, something to create content about, something to write about, like, and this is kind of like always at the back of my mind before I do anything, is always like, if it's something that I think about, something that I find interesting, somebody else is going to find it interesting. Yeah. And I think that is like the kind of base level at whenever you're going to write something, be it like some super in-depth thing or some light off the cuff thing, it's like, if you find it interesting, someone else will. And I've completely forgotten what you even asked me. Sorry.
Welcome to my world, Rich. Welcome to my world, man. It was about It's about chasing content.
It's all these teas.
Yeah. So
I'm going to be chasing content a little bit this winter. And also back to that whole working full-time thing, one of the things that I sometimes do is time box. And I was just listening to another podcast where Divya Tech, I'm going to mess this up, and I shouldn't because I have Armenians in the family. Takjian, I think. She did a January where she wrote about the Jamstack every day in January, and then it was done. And she discussed that as being super helpful. And similarly, I'm like, okay, I'm not doing any major content creation until the snow flies. And when it's warm enough to go out on a bike, I'm done. Everything has to get done this winter and early spring. And as far as, but I will be sort of to some extent seeking content for that, largely as a matter of practice material. I am planning to reach out to some of my local meetups and say, is there anything that you've just needed people to teach that, I could maybe help with? I think just sort of a volunteerism kind of thing. But as far as seeking content for the sake of keeping it going, I think I have yet to get into that area. I think right now I've for a long time I've approached content creation as a hobby that I do because I like it. I have some curiosity about treating it as a business, and I know that will become more of that seeking content will probably was probably pretty important when you treat it as a business. And so I think maybe that's an important distinction to make too, especially when it comes to work-life balance, is thinking about for this month, for this year, whatever your time box is, why am I creating content and what does that mean I want to do?
Yeah. And I think you could probably boil it all down to being helpful, right? So you can be helpful, like I said before, you can be helpful by replying to someone in a forum that's having a problem. And actually that's creating content still. In a very visceral way, though, it's directly communicating with someone and helping them, but it's still content. If you posted like 1,000 forum posts in a year, you've created a lot of content. And as I say, it has a nice side effect. It could turn into a blog post. I think in terms of just keeping it going, one thing I noticed was really interesting is when lockdown hit in the UK and they said you could go out for exercise once a day. We live out in the countryside. Suddenly it was like rush hour, like the fields around us, everyone was going past on their bike, people were doing walks. I was like, this is amazing. And as soon as they said, oh, you can do as much exercise as you like, we all stopped. and I think there's something in that, isn't there, that if you give yourself a week to do a thing, you'll probably do it. If you give yourself a year, you'll leave it till the end of the year and haven't done it. So
oh yeah, I can relate to that. I set myself out for this year. Oh yeah, I'm going to post a blog post at least every 2 weeks, and that was fine for the first 3 weeks, and then or 4 weeks, and then it was not again. like for having something like over a longer period of time, I think it's difficult, but I don't know how other people do it.
But I think having maintainable goals as well, so when you say one blog post a week, it can't be some ridiculous, deep dive into some subject. It's like
8,000 word blog post.
Yeah, exactly. Just like some snippet of, oh, I encountered this error today. This is what this means, and this is how you can avoid it if you encounter it. Or I had to do whatever, you know what I mean? But if it's actually maintainable, if you can actually do it, then I think these little mini things are incredibly rewarding to do for yourself, as well as people who are going to actually see your content. I mean, it's like a two-way street, isn't it? We touched on it earlier with marketing and marketing the content you make, but also about the fact that you are in essence really doing it for yourself. You are kind of just getting that stuff out there. You've encountered a problem, you've made something. I want to show other people how to do it. I think long format, not every week, but definitely little snippets, if possible, if they are maintained.
And there's a question, and sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to say, there's a question in Twitter about consistency and coming up with good ideas. And I know Seth Godin talks about writing, that if you wait for a great idea to write, that's kind of backwards. Because the only way to write, and it's not about the keyboard that you use or the, or the pen that you use, it's the literal only way to write is to sit down and write. So you're not going to have a great idea. Every blog post isn't going to, be a home run and get loads of traffic and help loads of people. So I think actually the consistency is just, putting everything out there, publishing your drafts, actually, not just letting them sit there and think, oh, they're not quite perfect.
Yeah, and then when you do publish your draft, if you have a comment feature, one of the things that is good is to actually watch it, because people will ask questions about all the holes you left in your material, which is a great way to find follow-up. But also that, as you said, like it really all comes down to helping, doesn't it? If you're doing it for free and you're sort of like, if it didn't help, fine, you didn't pay anything for it. Or if you're doing it behind a paywall,
Can we just talk about? Does anyone use like the Zettelkasten method, second brain thing? Just going back to what Rich was saying about all those little things you find helpful, but it's just like a one-liner or something. I've got like just a website which is just markdown pages where I just put like these one-liners grouped under certain things. But then there's other stuff as well where so the second brain thing is just where you just put all of your notes about a certain subject together. They don't have to make sense, but it's just like for reference. And then this helps you sort of form anything long form you'd want to like produce later. So it's something I haven't actually been doing for the last couple of days or so, but I did make a note of like very consciously, is like, that's really useful. I'll make a note of that. And I sort of just tag it up and then just put it into this database. So does any of you use that sort of method as well?
I can quickly, because I know other people are going to have a more in-depth answer than me. I'll just quickly jump in there and say, I haven't used any of this kind of brain software and kind of or
just notes. Just making notes for
it's brain software, Scott. Come on now, we all know what it is. Brain. Anyway, I haven't used any of that, but I mean, I did kind of I made like a copy paste page for myself. These things that I thought people might find like helpful, because I found them helpful. It was like, and it is literally 1 line or 2 lines or 10 of these kind of things. But I'm very interested to hear what everyone else says about what you just said, because I would really like to dive into expanding on that idea a lot more in terms of the little ideas kind of getting bigger in that with notes.
Yeah, I've so I used Roam Research recently for a while, and then more recently I've used another thing called Obsidian, which is similar, but works locally on your own Markdown files. But I mean, in a way, all it is technically is notes, as you say, and hyperlinks, really. But I think the point of that, and I've yet to hit that kind of real epiphany moment where I've really felt like it's working. But it is I think that the nature of it is that you take a note and then you can just like put brackets around a sentence and that becomes its own page. And as you do that, you create this kind of graph of relationships between concepts. And if you, the idea is if you then want to do a blog post about a certain topic, you can search for that topic and kind of find all the information you've captured over time.
Is it like GraphQL? So
yes,
so it's nodes and edges which lead the way to different ideas. Is that the whole point?
Yeah, so you can literally view a graph of it, and it's interesting because when you look at the graph, it's amazingly dense, like there's all these bits of it, and then you can see the outliers, so the things around the edges that aren't connected to anything else, but you can also find that topic that you've got lots of things that you've noted about. So I would say I've yet to hit the point where I'm absolutely convinced it's going to work for me, but I'm definitely really interested in the idea of it.
Use it, Katie? Mark?
Little scraps of paper that get lost around them.
Yeah.
That's exactly what Zettelkasten is, though, isn't it? That's the definition. Yeah. It's just
Post-it notes. I'm all over that.
Yeah. It's just
everywhere,
like little filing structure. So, what John was saying about Obsidian and What was the other one? Rome Research and Notion. I did like a YouTube video on it because I've just pulled it. I liked Obsidian more than Rome Research because you had all your files locally, and I started using something called Foam, which is just VS Code extensions in a text editor. And then I loved it because I could work with Markdown in my text editor like I do usually. So I found that a great tool and really useful. But like you're saying, John, at the moment, it's just like a dumping ground and stuff is tagged up. Yeah. I mean, Rich, you should see the graph for my Gatsby thing. It's just like it's this massive globe of stuff revolving around Gatsby. But I don't really think anything solid's came out.
What's the relationship between each of the nodes? Because the edge, like the line, what is how do you is it just a case of like gathering that data the same way you would in GraphQL, or is it kind of the relationships are formed in a certain way so that you can search for a certain thing and it will intelligently gather what you want? I don't really understand it.
It's just backlinks, so it's just hyperlinks to other documents you've
got. Not even that complicated. Not even that complicated.
No.
Okay.
No, so yeah,
fair enough.
When you're saying brain software, it's just.
Well, you say brain to me, links, nodes. You know, I'm thinking all this complicated stuff.
No, it's not that complicated. You could tell how Katie does it. Just write it down on a piece of paper. And
I do. Somewhere. That is how I do it. Exactly how I do it.
Yeah, but I think the reason why I liked it more was because I can stick it in a Git repo. So then, if I lose my text editor computer or whatever, I can, you know, as long as I don't lose an internet connection, I can get it back again eventually. So yeah. So just bear with me a sec. I've got to jump off. Hang on.
Yeah, I don't have where I take notes for those kind of things, even though I definitely should have.
Yeah, I think I heard someone say the idea is that if you came to like write about a subject, you should never be stuck thinking what's to write. You should be able to just pull all the notes you've taken. And another thing is intentionally taking notes when you read books. So I'm terrible at just reading books and like consuming all these books about business or about whatever it might be, philosophy and, you know, all sorts. And some of it sticks, but an awful lot of it, you know, it's just gone, I think, actually, the bits I don't remember. So some people would advocate deliberately taking notes, you know, because that's more useful, and this would be a great place to put it. But again, I'm not yet sure, because I've not got there, how you would then find them again or how they would come up naturally at some point in the future.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I'm feeling better about my drafts folder, because there's this philosophy going around of like, you know, just write it, don't have a drafts folder, do everything public. And I'm thinking, okay, I feel more justified about a lot of the stuff in my drafts folder. It's the ideas that aren't finished yet. It's notes.
Yeah, so I guess you guys both know, you folks both know Benjamin Lennon and from the Party Corgi Discord. And I've seen him do it, and I've seen also, I know his Twitter handle is the worst dev. I can't remember his actual name. Kurt someone. And then next to but if you look at their blog posts, you'll have like a little tree or a sapling or like a big tree, just to say like the status of the post, as if it's like, this is how it's going to be forever. It's like finished, or this is like this is my early note taking, and this is how I've done it, sort of thing. So I do like that idea, but I think what I was saying earlier is just all the stuff that's in my notes is just a mess at the moment. And I think if I publish that, people would be like, this is just random like links and stuff. So I think you need to find like a sweet spot of what you can sort of put out there, but then keeping that in sync with your second brain is tough as well. So yeah, I
think that actually maybe ties in a little bit to this question we've had from Twitter on there as well, because I think maybe a lot of people who do bangers potentially are doing a lot of thinking in public and engaging in a lot of conversations and getting in their ideas from other people. I don't know, that or they're just geniuses.
No, I think that's true. As going back to what I was saying at the beginning, the danger of this is if we try and go inside our own heads and think, I've got to write something amazing. Like, there's only so much you can draw on from inside, in your own mind. So definitely just paying attention to what other people are saying and struggling with them it's just easier than trying to generate ideas, yourself in a way.
So we need a Zettelkasten and a wall of pain. And then
there you go.
A Zettel pain. or a wall of Kasten. A wall of Kasten.
You laugh, but this time next year.
Okay, so sorry, chat. I've been not really paying much attention to the stream, to the chat. My wife's just she's leaving for a bit, so I've had to say goodbye. So I haven't really been watching what's going on. Is there any questions, Mark? Have we missed anything?
No, doesn't look. Oh, yes. Here from Gabby.
Hey, Gabby, by the way, hi.
Hi. How do you title a new blog post so that it doesn't look like a clickbait article?
I just want to say, can we trade it for a little bit? Can you help my blog posts look more clickbaity? Because as many listicles as I read about how to do it, I can't do it.
Stop it. Do not make them look clickbaity. I hate that shit so much. Like, as soon as I see anything that's titled in any way like that, I will not click on it.
Just hand it to me. It'll be 100-word title.
Usually, like if it for like YouTube content, it's like, don't do this, you've been doing this wrong all along. It's like always some sort of negative sentiment to get you to, what have I been doing wrong, sort of thing, and stuff like that. So on a
serious note, there is a good outline on the Free Code Camp writing site. I'm trying to find it now, where they outline what gets the most traction in terms of what type of article it is. So how to word it with adjectives and nouns and in what order.
Yeah.
I did have it up. Let me try and find it. I apologize.
So while you're doing that, Rich, we could share a link in the chat as well for everyone else to see it. And,
exactly.
Talk amongst ourselves while we Google stuff.
There are headline generators. I just found one. Well, let me see if I can share that. It's pretty fun.
Generators? Do they have that?
Yeah. Oh, they have everything.
I found there was an article about like how to name your article.
Yeah. So this is Gabby's last comment here, Mark. A simple way to what you don't know yet. This is what you've missed, sort of stuff. I try to avoid that sort of stuff myself. Oh, so what's this we're looking at here, Rich? Are you gonna?
No, this isn't me. This is Mark.
It's just Mark.
That's me. Sorry. So this is a headline generator, and if you put in a couple of tags like cats and home and training.
What happens if you put in wall of pain?
Oh, you need an account for more. Okay, let's just.
You died. That's what happened.
What is that? Confessions: How I got addicted to home. Okay.
I mean,
this generator isn't all that good.
I quite like the fact there's a tick box for clickbait or not. I mean,
so
where is that tick box?
Remotely before your kids were with you for pandemic, right?
So just for everyone who isn't watching on stream, Mark, what is this site actually called? I can't read the title there.
It's called. Do you see it when it gets?
Yeah, it's not really.
Yeah, cottonrow.com.
Yeah, I mean, so I've had blog post titles before that I've written that are just terrible, and then I've gone back and reviewed them. And the thing I've kind of noticed is that you tend to do the ones that I found do well that aren't clickbaity are actually just like addressing it's hard to describe, but like the problem that the person's having, but not in a clickbaity way. So I did one recently that was like CSS is hard, Tailwind CSS makes it easier. And I was quite pleased with that. It seems to do quite well because it addresses the problem that a lot of people have, that they really struggle with CSS, and I would put myself in that camp. But also that there is a possible solution, which Tailwind can make that easier. So I think things like that, just trying to address the the kind of problem that you're addressing in the blog post is good, but it not in an overly clickbaity, your life's going to end because you don't know Tailwind's way, just in a real way.
yeah. I try to. I say like how to do this, or styling something with X, or it's never you need to do this now, or I don't really think there should be that much like of a negative connotation on the reader of it to say you need to click on this, like.
Exactly. The piece they're reading is written with these technologies, with these versions. This is what you're reading. This is what you will produce. There's no you should go and use this. You should do this. You should do that. Kind of thing.
Well, also, it doesn't
make. I think also reusing your content gives you the chance to give it a better title the second time.
Yeah,
it's on all the titles, man. I want to see some of your titles now.
With the most or the post with the most traction I got was from the Practical Dev when I posted in the beginning of the year how to be a faster developer in 2020. And it got like crazy, like 14,000 views or something, even though I had very little followers. So nothing after that came even close to. And
Mark,
it
can you tell us how to be a faster developer?
Yeah, you have to type faster.
2 keyboards, isn't it? Type twice as fast.
Yeah.
But I think that's interesting because that hits on a very visceral pain that we've probably all felt. That feeling of, we know this should be quick. The customer or product owner thinks this should be quick, and everything is getting in the way for whatever reason. I'm feeling like a bit incompetent as a developer. That's a really
So there I was plugging into that pain, but without knowing it. So this I'm slow, or the perception that I'm slow.
So is your primary outlet Dev 2?
No, I post on my personal website, and I cross-post it to Dev 2.
Same. Okay, yeah. I think that's kind of important to mention as well for people as well that are kind of getting into, like, they want to start blogging and they want to start making content. I mean, creating content covers many mediums, but if you're going to talk about the written format, then I think it's extremely important to have your own domain where you own what you do, and you post it there and you own it and you have it, and then from there you control where it goes. And you cross post to wherever you want.
Can I just mention as well that if you are cross posting, that you should use places where you can add a canonical link, and canonical link is just what references your site as the source. And I mean, I don't mind writing content for other, websites and stuff, but if it's just solely for them, that's fine. But if it's like stuff which I've written on my blog and I want to cross post, I want to make sure that it's linking back to me as the original source of the material.
I do say that if I write something for other people, then as part of writing that,
if they pay you for it, it's theirs, right?
Well, as part of writing that, I try to agree that this will be posted on my blog as well. When I'm talking to them, agreeing on that contract, that is something that I do talk about personally.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe it's something everyone doesn't do, I don't know, but it's something that I try to insist on because it's content that I've written, regardless of who it's for. I probably would have done it anyway. And if I hadn't have done it anyway, and if I'm getting paid by them to do it, I would still like to have it on my platform as well.
Yeah.
I think it's worth negotiating, to be honest. I do it personally. So.
Okay.
I even wrote a blog post about canonical links, so I'm going to shamelessly plug this here.
There's a blog post for that. And I think owning your platform, that's really important, because you just look at what's gone on with Medium and places like that over recent times where they're in control, they can do what they like with your...
Do you know how many articles I've Googled? So many times recently I've Googled something and it's been like a Medium article and I'm like, Oh no, you've read this much this month.
Yeah.
Paywall. Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my god, it's
Yeah.
sickening. I hate
I'm not
it.
sure if you disable the JavaScript, the paywall goes away.
Really,
Completely.
I'm
I
sure they
think-
would have caught that.
Yeah,
or...
yeah, I think so. But I think it was.
I'll try it out,
in the
definitely.
past. Yeah.
We have another question here from Gabi.
Gabby with the questions.
How do you find collaborations for writing technical stuff?
Ooh.
Well,
Or
usually,
Katie, how would you say, Gabby?
it,
She's
in
not on
my-
the line. She can't reply to you.
At the thing that you're
I
doing?
haven't done anything like that. So
So,
sorry, Casey. Go on.
Yeah, no. Okay, so approaching people who are better than you at the thing can actually be really fun if they say yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it can be a good experience, can't it?
Pair programming, it's pair content. I haven't done it as a writing exercise. But I've gotten the chance to speak alongside Chris Moffat, who is geographically near me, and we both write about Python for Excel. He's sort of the expert in it, and I was like, "You want to do this?" And he was like, "Yeah, why not?" And I was like, "Really?" So sometimes just taking your favorite authors and seeing if they're game is a great approach.
Yeah. And I think actually collaboration is something I'd be keen to do more of. One problem I've found is doing technical content by yourself. It can be quite difficult, like especially when I've created courses, there comes a point where trying to walk through the course and catch all the bugs yourself is actually quite hard because you know it like backwards. And also, it's kind of boring. Like when you've read it 5 times in a row and you're going through it again and you're trying to do every single bit and make sure it all works, there comes a point where you kind of just, your eyes are glazing over and you've just seen these examples so many times. I think having another pair of eyes at that point, which is why, for proper publishing, you have editors ultimately, just someone to look at it and say, oh, hang on, that bit doesn't quite work. You've missed this. You've said that 4 times, or whatever it might be. So it's a hard thing. So I think a lot of content creation is by its nature quite an individual thing. But I think there's a lot to be gained from, potentially collaborating.
Yeah, so I've not done personally myself. I've seen like a lot of blog posts where, I think on the Zeit platform, Vercel platform, where they've done a blog post and there's like 4 people who are the authors and stuff like that. So I'm guessing they just take care of certain aspects of it. But then I guess you need like an editor to put it all together and stuff. So I don't think I'm at that level to be doing that sort of thing.
I've seen people do conference talks as 2 people as well, which is really interesting. Like, why does a conference talk have to be 1 person?
Yeah.
Actually.
So do you know Jake Archibald and Das Surma, who just likes to be called Surma, I think, where it was a Jamstack London 2019? Oh, God. But basically, they were both doing like an infomercial sort of talk to each other about performance and stuff, and it's quite interesting and good. They sort of bounce off each other quite well, and I think they do quite a lot of content for Google developers, like the YouTube channel. I'm not sure what aspect, probably Chrome, but yeah, it's a good way to do it like that, I guess. And I guess it's the same with a stream. When Rich and Paul Scanlon and I all did a stream, they were basically just shouting at me when I wasn't coding stuff properly. So I thought that worked out quite well. But I don't think Paul liked himself after shouting at me too much. So I don't think he liked the way he came off from that. But I don't know. I guess that's a good thing with like streaming and stuff, is that people get to be involved. And that's why, I try to, when we're doing this, I try to get everyone involved on the chat and make sure that any Twitter questions have been read out as well. So everyone's sort of involved in that aspect of it as well. So it's very much like a discussion between everyone, but we're the only ones who can talk, sort of thing.
Speaking of collaborations, one thing that I want to mention is it's so important to build circles of friends and approach other people, whether it's because you admire them or whether it's just because you both started at the same time. And so you're sort of getting started buddies, and it's a long friendship because you got started at the same time. I think it's also important to intentionally spend your success and spend your privilege beyond your circle of friends that you've made in acquiring it. And to that end, intentionally build your circles of friends diversely so that they're there when you do need to network and have this 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. But, cite your sources, but also cultivate your sources, thinking about, who they are. I don't know if I'd be quoting certain tech luminaries at this point, even though they've contributed important stuff. Just making sure that part of your sharing journey as you do experience potentially success in content creation is to leave tech a better place than you found it, and be intentional about the community you build that you bring along with you.
I feel like saying
And
here to that. That was nicely put.
Yeah, I was. It really came home for me when, and I hope I don't ruin it and just bring him a bunch of trolls now. But I was at a conference and I got to thank Scott Hanselman and say how interesting I thought it was that he had everyone from biologists to people I'd heard of, like Troy Hunt, because I use Have I Been Pwned all the time on his show, and just to have this really wide-ranging, interesting cast of new voices to me and old voices to me. And he said, "Oh, thanks, I work on that purposely." And if you look at his speakers page, you can see that. And he says, and the funny thing is, nobody realizes that I'm doing it intentionally, which is great because then I don't get trolls. But yeah.
I'm wondering, Katie, have you got a post on this, what you're talking about now?
I don't.
Way.
There's a new draft. I think that's really good. There's a guy
kind of stuff I want to say.
Party Corgi, William Johnson, has just written a book called, I think it's Breaking into Tech via Twitter, something like that.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because when I read the subject, I thought that's something I've not really thought about. And then when I read it, it's really good. I thought, actually, I have thought about this, which is how do you connect with people in a meaningful way, not to any end, but just because we need to connect to people, And I think his book is great because he says about proactively doing that. So actually, again, going to Twitter to help people, to connect with people. And then actually, it's like anything, you just need to do it intentionally, which sounds obvious now you say it out loud. But it's so easy to sit there and think, if I just go on Twitter every day, that will happen. And it oddly doesn't. You just go on Twitter every day.
So much Twitter.
Yeah, we all love a bit of Twitter. So I think we're wrapped up for questions now. So I think we're going to cut it here, Mark. I think it's going to do it a bit short today. But it's been awesome having you all on, and we've had a really good talk about content creation, and I'm hoping it's giving other people ideas on sort of stuff they can write about. I'm already thinking about recycling, about 20 odd blog posts now. So it's been really good to hear from you, Katie, and John and Rich. So thanks very much. You got anything to finish up with, Mark?
Yeah, thanks everyone for joining, and also thank you for everyone for listening and watching. It's been awesome to have also you, Kate, Rich, and John on here, and I hope we have some more collaboration in the future. This has been awesome.
It is great.
Let's write a blog post together.
Yeah,
you're right.
Wide directional blog
That's how you
post.
find collaborators. Go on a podcast with them.
I'll set up Trello board. You can do the Trello boards. Okay. We get a PM to do it.
So just before we wrap up, do any of you guys want to plug anything before we go? I mean, we've all got your Twitter handles in your names here, but if anyone is listening on the podcast, do you want to just run around? We'll do Katie, John, and Rich. Anything you want to plug, Katie?
Sure. I did just do the 2-week product challenge. And so if you're looking for a printable book that is not meant for, if you're listening to this, you're probably enough of a developer that you don't need help with XML, JSON, and YAML. But if you know someone who thinks that they are scary words that only developers know, but who perhaps is a business analyst or an end user who could benefit from not being afraid of reading some data files and just wants them demystified, I have a book out on katiecodes.com about all three, and I'm giving all the money away to charity up till this week because, you know, I have content creation shyness, and I'm like, I'm not supposed to charge money for this. So yeah, come get it now.
Okay, awesome.
Great.
Yeah, so everything for me is through the blog, which is johnhilton.net. That's JON Hilton.net. And yeah, I would say that the main things on there, apart from all the blog posts and everything, are my courses/books on getting into ASP.NET MVC, Blazor, which everyone's now really interested in, and also a bit about React and ASP.NET Core. So those are the main things that I've got there. But otherwise, yeah, just check out the blog and leave a comment.
Cool. Rich, how about you?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I just I moved my blog from.
Your blog
mate.
looks great, by the way. Yeah.
Thank you very much. I moved it over to a subdomain. So it's garden at, no, it's not even garden at, it's garden.richardhaynes.dev. And I'm also working on DevPack, which is like, you know, keep your online branding consistent kind of thing, like your name, your description, your photos, all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I've got that with Twitter and GitHub right now. Still working on it.
Cool. Cool.
Okay.
So
I think we have it here. Oh yes, don't forget to buy your tickets for Vue.js Global to see my super speech about how we build reactivity in Vue 3 from scratch.
Yeah, go see Mark.
Okay, guys. So thanks everyone, and we are going to be offline in 1, 2. Bye.